Part of me wanted to play every single one that we have in there.
Yeah.
Or, shout out to Pasta Mike for the graphics. I think we have a bunch more too that aren't even in the queue to use. So he's been a good help there because we definitely didn't do those. So shout out to Pasta Mike. So we are going to get in, probably just go straight into it. But I'm gonna definitely pass it off to Cease to update anybody on anything coming up or anything that you want to detail. But today is just gonna be, we're gonna go over a 6-minute clip on capturing Christianity about the historical facts argument with Dr. Gary Habermas. And then there's like a 36-minute video that we'll start to touch on after that, because I believe the 6-minute video is just taking out of that. And I think it'd only be fair to go into the source material. I've watched part of the other one. If it's gotten up to, or if the 5 minutes of whatever the video is goes through it pretty thoroughly, then maybe we can find another video, or have a theist in the audience that we know come on, and we can have a discussion about your belief. We were toying with the idea of having theists like an open challenge type thing at all times, where any theist can come on and talk, but we're just worried about, since we don't know the person, what they could potentially do with the stream. And so we're going to maybe do a phone line thing, which would be cool. So we're working those things out. But any theists that we know or that subscribe or longtime viewers, let us know, and we can get you a StreamYard link and whatnot. Anyway, Cease, break down anything that you feel you want to break down, and then we'll go into the video.
Well, first of all, if you guys can hear me, let me know how my volume is sounding, because this is a new
Sound
computer.
Good to me. Okay. For me, I think I might be echoing because I don't have headphones today. So
no, I
same
can
thing.
Hear you fine.
Check our audio, folks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think we're just gonna go right into the video. As far as the other news, sorry guys for the lack of content. It's been like a crazy couple of weeks. I was like sick for like half of it. So, but now we're back on the normal schedule. I think we said Mondays and Wednesdays, and then any other day that we're able to find. So
yeah, I won't go into the details, but I had issues all throughout not like issues like bad issues, but just typical type of things that happen with vehicles and logistics and things like that, money. And so I even had to cancel Talk Heathen on Sunday, or not. I couldn't show up, not cancel, but I couldn't show up for Talk Heathen. So it's been rough for a couple platforms, a couple things happened, but it seems like it's all good now. It's just a little hiccup in terms of availability, but we'll be back on that. And then you said Friday we'll have
Friday we should be having a I think he's a philosophy professor, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check, but he has a background in philosophy, and he sent me an email saying if we're going to have a discussion, so that would be cool. I was toying with the idea, and you guys in the audience, let me know what you think of, given that the new Batman movie just came out. I was thinking of doing a philosophy of Batman video at some point.
I actually know perfect. I'm losing his name now, but you had him on. He writes books like that. David Johnson, Dr. David Johnson, right?
Yeah, that'll be good to have. So I was thinking about doing that as well. Good evening, everybody who's coming in. Pessimistic idealism. It's
not very pessimistic of him to say good evening, but I mean, well, I guess maybe he could. I don't
know. Pessimistic. It wasn't much of a response, to be fair, because I have a real difficult time kind of understanding your framework. That's why maybe next week we can have you come back, and because I was reading the article and I'm very confused about some of the terminology and the way that it's being used in the article. So
That was
Um,
the same kind of thing I had when I read it. I was like, I need a lot to be explained to me.
yeah,
Like
because I just wasn't
5.
sure, because much of what you said I think could be interpreted in different ways, and I wasn't sure which way you meant it. Uh, so we can kind of clarify and clear that up. So, because I don't want to misrepresent your position, and I don't think I fully understand what it is that you're describing there. Um, so we'll definitely get
Sure.
to have that conversation. But for tonight, I think we're gonna address Habermas.
We are. Oh, you know
Uh,
what? Man, I do this all the time. This is what I wanted to do. Like I wanted when we go into the segments, like, all right, go on to the segment. And like have it ready,
I feel like we're the most
But
unprofessional
we're just not
broadcasters,
we're not
right?
those type of people, like, I don't think in terms of this is why when I do talk Heathen ACA, the crew is
There's,
such a fucking awesome help and like the backbone of what's going on at all times. Because yeah, you can see in our demonstrations that when we man the ship, it's a little different. But we're working on that, so we'll learn.
are we?
Anyway, so you guys might
I
know
don't
this
know.
person. If you don't, then I would say, well, I'll make, yeah, okay. I'm not gonna say anything. I would just say, if you don't want to be introduced, now's your time to pause the video and watch something else, and live a life of not hearing bad arguments, at least. Nothing against this person, but anyway, let's go.
What is like your 5-minute spiel on the evidence in
It's definitely
support of the
echoing from you.
resurrection? These are
What's that?
It's definitely echoing from your end because of the
Yeah,
headphones.
it's also really loud on my end, so I'm gonna turn it down and just mute myself.
Okay.
facts. These are historical facts, and this is what you specialize in. So
Yeah. I start with what I call a minimal facts argument. It's a species of reliability, one of the reliability arguments, but where most reliability arguments are top-down arguments. If the book is reliable, it's like an umbrella. Everything under it gets kept, from the rain. If the book is generally true, whatever's reported under it is accurate. Mine's a bottom up, and instead of an umbrella, I would suggest an example of a brick wall with individual facts being bricks that we put together to build a case from the bottom up. And I've used anywhere from 3 to 7 over the years. Lately, I've been doing 6. And I would say Jesus died by crucifixion.
Should we start one by one or let it go through and then come back one by one?
Maybe let him say everything and then go back one by one. I just real quick already, like a red flag. I have a feeling he's going to conflate the types of claims as though they're equal, like they're deserving of the same kind of evidence and support. Like the Bible could be historically reliable in almost every sense, and it wouldn't give any credence to its supernatural claims. So his approach, I think, is problematic from the start.
Yeah, and so I wanted to bring this up at some point, but you kind of segued me into that. And we've talked about this on the phone. I take I'll wait to, I guess, make the full point later, but there's also something that would, like, say if they're using miracles or something here, I don't know that constitutes as evidence towards God, even if you granted some supernatural entity. It seems that there's spirits and things like that and within scripture that are performing miracles, especially in a various different array of religions. And so clearly, like, it doesn't seem to be like an identified source that like has a lot, a valid inference rule that, it goes straight to this thing. I'm kind of somebody that would just grant all the minimal facts and that there was a resurrection, I still don't think it gets you to Christianity is true, or even to a deity. But that's a separate point. But the point being, I mean, does it even constitute as evidence towards the proposed source, which would be the deity in question? And I don't know how that inference rule follows personally, but maybe we'll get into that here in a minute.
His disciples had experiences that they believed were appearances of the risen Jesus. Because of their belief that he was raised, it is the event that has turned the world upside down religiously. In fact, a recent book on non-believing Jews and the resurrection, they even acknowledge, not being Christians, that Christianity is a resurrection religion. It was the resurrection that powered the religion, powered the teachings, even to the point of being willing to die. And we do have first century sources for arguably the three largest names in Christianity.
Let's just go one by one, because I mean, it's, I feel like it just makes the most sense. It's hard not to pause it when he says it. So the second claim is going to be willingness to die, people's willingness to die.
Hey, Spartan.
Sure. Why don't you, if you want to go ahead and address that, or we can let it finish out and then address it.
Hey, Elaine. Just saying hi to everybody coming in. Yeah, look, this is to hold this position that the fact that Christians were willing to die is somehow any kind of evidence that points to the truth of the claim. The only way that you can hold a position is if you ignore psychology. Like if you ignore well-known facts that's been observed about psychology, about delusions, about the power of wishful thinking, then it can seem to make sense that, oh, well, why would they die if it wasn't real? But people have died, and we've said this before, people have died for false beliefs throughout all of history. And their willingness to die, nobody's saying that they were lying. Like, I believe that they believed in what they were claiming. It doesn't mean anything about the truth value of the actual beliefs. People can believe something very strongly and be completely wrong. People's perceptions can be flawed. I mean, the Japanese, the kamikaze died willingly, and it wasn't even based on a religious belief.
Yeah, precisely. I was actually gonna say we could use many examples of that, but the way I kind of want to break it down is like, does it logically follow that someone's conviction or willingness to die on a proposition being true indicates that the proposition is actually true? That being said, does the propositional attitude that somebody holds and how dearly they hold the propositional attitude, does that really allow for the inference that it's true? Clearly not, right? It's clearly not an inference. So that seems to me, that seems to be like a extremely trivial fact, right? Like it's not I think the conflation of some people saying accepting, especially this type of a minimal fact, is like, it doesn't even add any points towards the proposition. Like, clearly people's conviction or their propositional attitude has no bearing on whether or not it's actually true, right? So utilizing it even as a minimal fact in the first place is just like missing the mark.
Two things real quick. Spartan, I only saw part of the video of how everyone was talking to Pine Creek, but that's something that I do want to review.
Yeah, we're a little behind. This is like 2 years ago, but we're gonna go through, I think.
And also, CJ makes a good point. He says it's not even inconsistent for someone to die for a lie if they thought maintaining the lie was valuable. The willingness to die is just going to be some fact about psychology.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So 2 down.
Christianity. 4, very important. It was proclaimed very early. And today, critics, the consensus position is that you can track the resurrection preaching back to immediately after the cross. In fact, the way it's often stated by, say, Bart Ehrman, is that when Paul said yes to Jesus on the way to Damascus, there was already a body.
It's like the new creeds or whatever. I hear this all the time, but am I echoing? Because
No.
I didn't mute my mic, so I was just let me know in the audience if I am. Sorry, I'm gonna mute.
Of data called the early creeds that are later written in the New Testament. They were already being noised abroad. When Paul said yes, there were these heavy creeds, about 80% of which are in the deity, death, resurrection of Jesus, because that's a major message. They were already in existence. When Paul didn't invent Christianity, the main reason, when he came to Christ, the message he hated most, we already have data from that 2-year period before Paul. And then the last two would be individuals, James, the brother of Jesus, and Paul, both of whom become Christians because they believed they had experiences which were appearances of the risen Jesus. Those are the 6 I would use. And to my knowledge, I've had dialogues with atheists, agnostics, scholars.
Wait, was there 4 in that?
I don't see where the 4 point. It all seemed like the same thing. He just said more people believed it. That's still the 1 point. How is that 4 facts?
Did I miss something?
I mean, again.
Okay, well, let's just address, I guess, what was said rather than the quantity. Yeah, so I guess my issue is just still the same, and I guess CJ puts it perfectly, right? There's no inference that gets you to raising the probability that the proposition is true, and this kind of suffers the same issue. Like, I don't know what look, I can grant not an invention of Paul or something like that. I'm not. That's
who cares?
It's just going to go down to I think what you said, right? It's just going to still be the same issue of conviction or whatever someone's attitude towards the proposition is, which is not illuminating whether or not the proposition is true or false.
I mean, there's also the problem that what does he mean by resurrection? Because there are different views and interpretations of what that even means. Like some think, and I think most Christians think that Jesus came, was bodily resurrected, and others think that no, it's like it was a spiritual resurrection. What is the word "seen"? Even in Paul's letters, in that context, can mean many different things. Can mean in vision, in dreams, perhaps in body or visually. And for all those things, we have perfectly naturalistic explanations and psychological explanations that we at least have observed are a part of reality. So it goes back to, I think, the way that T-Jump phrases it. What methodology are religious people using to show that these events actually happened, as opposed to being imaginary, as opposed to being explainable by some kind of psychological issue?
Sure. When we go into the video, we'll definitely skip the 6 minutes of this. Just heads up.
Specialists, and they don't dispute any of those.
So how do they respond to this? That you have these facts and you establish them historically, and you say the best explanation of these facts is that God raised Jesus from the dead, right? And there are these existing naturalistic attempts of explaining away these facts.
Yeah.
What is the best one to your knowledge, and then why do you think that it fails?
Someone just asked me that yesterday, and I made the point. You'd expect me to say this, but years ago, I would have told you the one that I thought was the hardest answer. Today, I would say, not only are there no good ones, there are no good theories that you can really take and ride to the bank, so to speak. If you're a naturalist, you can really take care of the resurrection with this. But the critics have generally given up espousing these theories.
This is pure delusion.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm sure they'll touch upon any idea of any natural explanations better, and hopefully there's an argument.
Who's given up on?
I was gonna say the one thing I wanted to criticize was the idea that people have given up is that like at least the way that I've always phrased this is like if I had some, spreadsheet or something, or I'm listing out possible natural explanations versus some supernatural one. In each case, there's some like implicit basis or like some basis, whether it's from past, I'll just go with past experience, that gives you credence of why it would be an explanation. If you look, I saw this thing and it made me think. It was like some like short video, but if you look at like a map of T-Mobile and the coverage that they offer, there's like this giant like middle zone where there's no coverage, right? Like Nebraska. And so one could be like, well, yeah, that's where the T-Mobile goblins live, right? Like that's why. Like there's like you could come up with ad infinitum, whatever supernatural explanation. As opposed to that, there's just no coverage there due to the fact that they maybe don't have a contract or some cell tower. And it could be something as ridiculous as like, Jesus rose from the dead from aliens. But in either case, you have a basis for like, in one case, the aliens, actually having a species that's intelligent enough to leave the planet, right? To have technology. And in the other case, you have an actual demonstration of like cell phone towers being responsible, for coverage or lack of coverage. So it isn't like the idea is for me is like as simple as that. No matter what dumb kind of, whether you deem it to be rational or irrational, it has no basis to explain any datum at all. So it's just as bad as saying like that, the reason why there's no coverage in Nebraska and why the map has this, absence of coverage is because of these T-Mobile goblins that consume.
What he's saying,
right? It's just this a dumb explanation to posit because there's just no basis for it, right?
But I mean, like, I'm just kind of stunned that he just said what he said, because what he's saying is so detached from reality. I mean, the farther in you get into academia, the less religious people are. Now, it doesn't mean that makes religious false. I'm just saying that if what he was saying was true, the whole world would be Christian. What he's saying is false, even in the context of Christian historians, because most of them acknowledge that ultimately belief in the resurrection is a matter of faith, and they're okay with that. Like, yes, they believe it's true, but most historians recognize limitations of history as a field, and understand that that's not how you approach the question of religion. History is not this objective framework, even for claims that are not supernatural, let alone for those kinds of discussions. I don't know. It just seems to me that he doesn't understand history.
An article some years ago where I argued that less than 25% of the critics in the last 25 years, about less than 25% use the naturalistic theories anymore.
Even if it was true, it'd be irrelevant. Like even in a possible world, every like critic. So like, I think we've identified Habermas's hang up is like the attitude somebody has towards a proposition or an explanation, and that somehow has some like effect on the proposition being actually true. Because in this case, like it's trivial if we just posited a possible world where all the critics just eventually come to the conclusion that Jesus rose from the dead, and they all are just convinced. That wouldn't actually like elucidate whether or not the proposition is true.
He has
like
a completely baseless.
It could still just be the case that it's not true, because precisely for the same reason, the inference rule that's used on conviction alone doesn't constitute the proposition being true. So it's not going to matter on either side of the coin, right? It's just a dumb point.
Okay, so I want to address something that Spartan just said. he writes, I agree with Dale Allison. The historical evidence is enough to say that the resurrection is a possible explanation, but so are other natural explanations. Here's the problem that I have with that statement. Yes, I'm not going to say that a resurrection or miracles or whatever anybody wants to come up with are impossible. Because I would to make a claim of certainty of that kind, I would need, all of knowledge, all of possible knowledge. So I wouldn't say that it's impossible, but I wouldn't say that I know it to be possible either. And this is just a mere epistemic technicality. Like for anybody to talk about possibility and then to talk about probability, one has to establish the phenomenon of a resurrection as being a kind of event that we've observed as real in the actual world. History is never going to give you that. History at best deals with what most likely happened in the past. You can't attribute likelihood to something that we haven't established is a real thing and beyond our imagination. And in history, as a field, I think is extremely limited. I'm very skeptical of people that take history as this kind of like objective source of information. I don't agree with the modernist on much, but I do think they have a point to make when they talk about the how would I say this, the lack of stability and not what's what I'm looking for, why history is not really to be trusted on that level.
Sure.
Most of the time history is written by the victor, and I think that people don't realize the degree to which power dynamics and meta-narratives are involved in writing out history in the way that actually skews reality and the way events actually took place. And that's even not even, with the context of possible supernatural things. So to even talk about a possible explanation beyond just, well, anything could be, right? Like we could sit here and come up with 1,000 explanations. Any of those could be, but do we have a good reason to believe any of those things? How would historical evidence ever point to a supernatural explanation? Now, if we're going to believe in the supernatural, we have to show some other framework that can ground it in something that isn't purely imaginary. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, let's continue on.
They will usually say something like this. Yeah, facts are good. I don't agree. It's your idea is the only way to go. But, you've got an evidence case. And if you pushed them a little bit and said, well, what keeps you from believing the stuff yourself? If the evidence is so good. Go ahead.
Hume.
Well, Hume, but I think generally they'll say, I just don't want to believe.
Really?
And they will say miracles don't happen, and that say that they know you're ready. They don't often want to take you on.
Okay, interesting that's said. So, like I said earlier, I'm willing to just grant that the resurrection happened in a case to prove the point that I don't think that identifies the source being Yahweh and that it follows that Christianity is true. I think that's a inference that needs to be substantiated still.
CJ says I call bullshit on that. I do too. Most people who are even remotely intellectual would never, what we want to be the case doesn't enter the equation. We don't need to say, I don't believe in miracles, not because I don't want them to be true. I don't give a shit. I care about what is actually the case.
Yeah.
And it just that doesn't make any sense.
There's An interesting argument that I talked to you about before the show that I'm interested in what CJ and anyone in the audience thinks as well, from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on Miracles. There's an argument in there that a miracle by definition is the most improbable of events, i.e. the probability of a miracle is infinitesimally remote. Premise 2, and it says an historian. A historian can establish only what probably happened in the past. Therefore, a historian can never establish that a miracle happened. And so the force of the argument is going to be that if you agree a historian, especially what CJ says earlier about this is about abductive reasoning, if you agree that this is about abductive reasoning and we're going about with what's most probable, and that's kind of the basis of a historical analysis, then you're going to run into a contradiction when you don't agree with, or when you agree with that and the fact that a miracle is an improbable event, because you're saying that historians can give a most probable account for an improbable event.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what anyone thinks about that, but I don't know I gave the conclusion. The conclusion is a historian can never establish a miracle happened.
And I think this is just a classic example of projection. He's claiming that, atheists are atheists because they just don't want to believe. When in reality, theists tend to be theists. I mean, there are many reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that because they want it to be true. And they're motivated by their wishful thinking, more so than, do I have good reasons to accept these claims as actually being true. Like Spartan, when you say that this historical evidence is enough to say a resurrection is possible, I don't understand how history as a field could ever provide the kind of evidence that will make a resurrection make sense, or ground the resurrection as being true beyond the imaginary. I don't really understand how you bridge that gap there.
Another comment is, yeah, but you got a problem with your theory. What's that? Well, you got some data for your theory, and I'm not exactly sure where I would go to refute it. But you're asking me, implicit in your argument is you're asking me to believe in Middle Earth, Narnia, or if you want a secular example, Oz.
So yeah,
none of that matters at all. Like, that's just such a dumb point. Like, I don't even know we should address that. That's just stupid.
Spartan, I agree with you. I'm not ever claiming that anything rules out. I mean, in principle, God can't be ruled out, depending on how you interpret it, right? I mean, there's certain versions of God that are logically contradictory, and then you can. But generally, yes. I've never said that miracles can be ruled out or gods can be ruled out. What matters is, do we have good reasons to accept the claim? I can list 1,000 explanations that we couldn't rule out, but well, the only thing that matters here is, do we have good reasons to trust any one of these explanations?
I'm not really too familiar. I've tried to look into other people, like Eddie and I have talked about, because he's all about a Bayesian analysis on, I don't know about the resurrection, but on certain things. And so that's probably where my ignorance creeps in, but it seems like the priors are going to be mind dependent, right? Or there's not going to be an actual basis of the priors involved being of at least in these types of arguments, I'm not saying across the board, but those priors are going to be mind dependent, because there's really nothing in reality mind independent to point to with supernatural, and you're making that analysis. So the Bayesian route's weird to me. I don't know that it would have much force,
I don't know that it's so much of an issue of mind dependence, because to some degree, in general, in epistemology, you're going to deal with that problem. Like everything. I mean,
well, yeah, I'm saying I don't know what's identifiable like in the analysis, like for probability. It seems to be like the priors seem to be like because I think so. That's what it seems to boil down to.
I mean, it seems strange that people talk about probability before you've established something to be actual in the first place. Like usually probability refers to things that we've actually observed happen in nature. How do we talk about a resurrection in terms of probability when we haven't even gone past the first step yet? So it just doesn't make any sense. But let's see what else he says.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading what CJ had wrote.
You're asking me to believe in that, and there's no world like that. How do you know? Well, there's no, look up everything we know from empirical science. There's not an ultimate universe. And when I'm talking to a person like that, I always go,
what does that mean?
Time out. Let's talk about near-death experiences. And because the evidence has been coming in so well, in a recent book, up to 30 million people in North America, England, and Europe have claimed to have near-death experiences.
So what?
Well, we're going to talk about the fact that they all contradict each other. I mean, like if he's just isolating those areas in virtue of a Christian near-death experience, what about NDEs, like of other beliefs?
Also, what does it mean to say that empirical science tells us there's no such thing as an ultimate universe? Well, I don't know what that means. These are just words he's stringing together. Like, I don't know what is he referring to there?
That's what I'm saying. This is hot air, and Ethan's right. I don't know what we thought about substance. We said we were going to go through it, and we're doing it. So we're sticking to our word. Maybe regretfully, but we're doing it.
So I could say, hey, let's just say the number's blown up too much, and there's only 20 million. In a way, that's 20 million people who've been to Narnia, if you want to look at it that way. So don't tell me there's no empirical evidence for this. And they'll say, yeah, those are just experiences. You don't have data. Well, you don't say that to me. I just gave a paper yesterday. I know of 300 evidenced NDE accounts where what's reported is empirically verified. So if you...
This is again.
So if they had access to their subjective experience, is that the claim that you're making, Dr. Habermas? Because
having an experience.
How do you verify that the contents of the experience were?
How do you verify that it's real? Not a near-death experience? Doesn't say anything about what is actually real after life or after death. Like the fact that could be a hallucination. Like I have dreams.
He solved external world skepticism. See, you didn't hear about that? Like, we can analyze subjective experience and verify it. That we know he probably has a metaphysical analysis and philosophy of mind of what the nature of subjective experience is if we've confirmed it, right? So I'm interested in that. That commits him to it.
What annoys me is the confidence in which he says is garbage. This is complete nonsense, and he just says it like, oh, this is obvious. Like you've said nothing. You've provided no empirical evidence of the truth claim of the true value of any of your claims. You said some people experience certain things when they have a near-death experience. So what? I have dreams that feel more real than my actual life at times. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, yeah. This is just infuriating.
All right.
You can't refute it, and it's almost impossible to refute the NDEs. If you can't refute them, and you have this alternate reality,
he said it's almost impossible to refute. No, it's impossible to look. It's impossible to confirm the content that's being experienced is actually being reflective of reality. Like we can grant that NDEs happen, that people have these experiences, but that's what we confirm. Like if there wouldn't be a debate about the contents being real or debates about this topic at all if it was really confirmed that what they were experiencing. Because which one? They just confirmed the Christian near-death experience. What did Jesus look like? Like what was heaven like? They don't confirm anything. Why wasn't it a confirmation of Vishnu? I don't.
There are people that have
so
near-death
strange.
experiences that say that they saw nothing and it was all dark, and that was all. So all these near-death experiences are in contradiction to each other. And this is no different than the people who want to claim that using drugs is a gateway to some higher consciousness and higher perception of reality. When it's like, no, you've altered your perception. Now you have a certain kind of perception. You have no further access to that perception being more real than anything else.
It's entirely mind dependent, and that's like where the buck stops, on this, or the, Kafi or Coffee's type of typical, mysticism thing. It's like, look, unless you can actually give me something, like I've even asked for noetic information, like give me novel information in the future. Hey, there's Kafi right there on cue. Holy shit. That's amazing. Someone clip that out. That's great. That's brilliant. No, nothing but love. But this the same issue with his look on it is that even if I take away what I'm asking for, some mind independent notion, give me like some, and maybe this ties into a mind independent notion because we can analyze it, but give me something in the future, like some information, make a prediction, have it come true, and I'll be happy. And I'm sorry, this isn't me. I thought you need to say his name 2 more times for him to appear. Oh my God, let's move on. Finish this.
Well,
in what category? In the category of.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What infuriates me about this is that he's supposedly a historian and supposedly a scholar, and the things he says are so laughable. Like, how do you reach to that supposed pinnacle of academia and be that severely weak in philosophy? It's just I don't know.
He doesn't. Well, I know Habermas, for prime example, is not concerned with the philosophy of it. I mean, he's not even going to understand
But he doesn't understand his own field. He doesn't understand his own field and its limitations.
Because I have a real issue with the fact that there's going to be an agreement typically, especially if they don't know I'm walking them through an argument. I just get them to accept, hey, do you agree with this, statement? Like, historians are using abductive reasoning and seeing what's most likely true, and what's most probable. Yeah, okay, and maybe some other day I ask them about miracles, and you think that that's constitutively like an improbable event, right? Yeah, it's okay, well, there's tension there, but that philosophical notion can't really, I feel be spelled out to people like this that don't see that, because it's if you just agree that's the case and you're using abductive reasoning, then you're in some serious tension to agree that the miracle is an improbable event that's being explained by something that you've agreed can't deal with improbable events. But yeah, so that's, to me, that's what it all boils down to, these arguments, at least.
Afterlife. Oh, so there may be an afterlife. Well, I didn't think so until today, but yeah, I guess maybe there is. Okay, now can we talk about resurrection? See, because I've opened the door to talk about this alternate reality, which may last for.
He's opened nothing.
It's I can't believe what is coming out of this guy's mouth right now. This is insane. We have 30 minutes left of this.
Right, there's no way. All right, there's no way I can get through 30 minutes of this.
I was like, do we call an audible? Let's get to the very end of this.
Forever, and you can't say anymore. Yeah, but you're asking me to believe in Oz, because I would say I sure am, and I've got data for Oz.
Fucking mic drop by Dr. Gary Habermas there at the end. It's so good that we want to listen to it again.
And you can't say anymore, yeah, but you're asking me to believe in Oz, because I would say I sure am, and I've got data for Oz.
So where is it? What's the like? We could accept all the premises given. It doesn't. There's no inference rule that follows. What structure are you using in your argument? Like, right? None of this is of a concern.
Yeah, I can't go through a half hour of. We can try some of it, but.
Yeah, if anyone has any Q&A as well or questions, we'll give some answers on this or anything else.
That was worse than I expected it to be.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, I think Ethan was right at the beginning.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the view that I wanted to spell out. I could put the argument up, but I put it in the comments earlier. I can go back up here. Yeah, I'll just put it up here. It's in a weird blocky format because of the fucking the way the characters are set. But would you agree with this? Because for me, this seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, my problem with that is
even that somebody agrees with these premises, it seems to be pretty straightforward, right? I mean,
my problem with that is that I can't even make the first step of even talking about probability, other than just saying, like, because we don't know everything, it could be the case just as a matter of a technicality.
I'm just saying if they agree to that, like if that's like their view on the miracle, and then they also agree with the second premise.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's really an argument designed, I mean, specifically for people that define it this way. I think you can also make derivations or like make some kind of alter, like you could alter the premises in a way, to make it fit a different definition. But like I know Darth Arianis runs an intentionality argument. But you could technically, put in whatever you want for a different desire in the second premise that's run. So depending on what they believe. So the idea is just going to be dependent on what they accept.
I'm itching to review some inspiring philosophy, bad takes on science sometime soon if you want to do that.
Yeah, we can get a clip set up for that. We're at the 50 mark, so if anybody has any questions, we can run through that. Cease, I will allow you to make the pivot, whether or not we pivot or we go through part of the. I feel like we covered pretty much everything that he'll say in 30 minutes there, but
how about we do this? We'll examine that video on our own time to see if he actually says anything meaningful.
Sure.
And then, because I don't want to bore everybody watching this.
Yeah.
And then if he does, we'll go back to it. I have a feeling that more or less this is what it's going to be like. But I'm not. I mean, it's up. I don't know.
No,
well, let's see. What do they want?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. Well, I mean, I was hoping that we get a theist potentially at this point, but apparently nobody wants to defend. We could do the J. Robin. God exists because.
Oh yeah, do you have any clips of that fool?
Yeah, there's actually that's Clubhouse. That's where everybody's gone. So
I don't really understand how to use that app yet. Maybe you can teach me.
You can do it on PC, I think, and you can do it on phone.
Do you have any clips of J. Robin that we can tear apart real quick, just for fun?
I'm sure there's something. Yeah, let me.
Yeah, look up.
I'm sure there's something.
The only thing worse than a Dark Dawkins is a Dark Dawkins minion. CJ asks, did you see Clubhouse Debate's latest video with Jack? It's hilarious. I have not seen.
I have not.
Hey, Kat. Is this Jack? What's What the hell is his last name?
Engstrike.
I'm not a big fan of his, to be honest.
He's been nothing but nice to me.
He was a complete dick to me the one time.
I think I remember.
He seemed like
that was a while back.
He seemed like
Jack's extremely smart. But yeah, he'll definitely not shy away from getting mad. That's for sure.
He just seemed like another rager of the Dark Dawkins types, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. I don't find him to be particularly compelling, the things he says, but I don't know. Anybody
there's a Tom Rabbit one. I don't think I've seen this one.
My name is Shemaine Jeffers. I've been driving trucks since
Yeah, I haven't seen much of those kind of videos.
Hey, YouTube out there! Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit!
It's not their beliefs; it's what God has revealed, and we know that is what God has revealed because the God that has revealed it, we know the property sets of it. The God that revealed it, and the property set is the property set that I'm verbalizing right now. That he's always revealing, that he reveals. He's a mind. He's always truth revealing. That he's omniscient, omnipotent. That he has sovereign control over things. That he's maximally relational. These are all properties of the Christian God that no other ultimate has. And once you realize that, you're going to end up having to try to start erecting another worldview where you're trying to posit the attributes and the qualities of the Christian God, at which point you just be conceding that the Christian God does have the necessary property sets, and you're just trying to create a manifestation of a God that's trying to mimic or caricature that.
What's the contradiction in not having those properties, and what's the argument for them of metaphysical necessity? But
right.
Anyway,
at which point you just conceded the argument. At which point you just conceded the argument to me.
So
okay,
we know that
right,
these beliefs are true because somebody else wrote it down that it's true, right?
No, we know these beliefs are true because the impossibility of the contrary.
That's the point. How have you
so all that statement is that P is true and not P entails a contradiction. What's the argument? What's the
just
argument
a claim
that entails a contradiction? I don't get it.
It's like when people say, "Well, without God, we can't have any understanding of reality." What's the phrase they always use? The intelligibility of reality.
Facts can only be intelligible if and only if the Christian God exists.
Yeah,
it's
prove it. Like, on what grounds do you make the statement? That's fucking stupid. There's no ground to.
I mean, you could just give an argument for that, but the other thing that's always snuck in that I don't feel like a lot of people address is like, what's the ultimate foundation for intelligibility? Assumes some type of foundationalism. And if that's just not the case that someone holds, just begs the question against their view.
But there's also no reason to assume that you can have a foundation that wasn't what they pretend to know is the foundation. It's just
yeah.
So
I mean,
bad.
CJ is precisely the point, right? Like impossibility to the contrary. Yeah, and God equals square root of one pretty much just said it. Like, right, it's just like a restatement of the claim that God exists of necessity. It's like, especially if you're saying that it's, not P is contradictory, and you're saying God exists of this like logical necessity, which I think the notion of metaphysical necessity is just like, I don't even know what that means. It's a weird, I've never gotten this, like a argument for that. You just need to derive the contradiction if not P is true, right? In a world where not P is true, what's the contradiction? Which is the not God world, I guess, is the
all you've done is laid out a bunch of beliefs written down in scripture, and you say that we know it's true because it was written down in scripture. So the question I'm asking you is, how did you rule out all other concepts of God that are written down in sacred texts that are believed just as firmly as yours? What's the method?
all the other gods do not have the property set of the Christian God. And I just went over the properties. I went over the fact that he's always truth revealing, that he does engage in revelation, period, omniscience, omnipotence, etc. I just went over this. Okay. None of the other religions have the property set of the Christian God. None of them.
How do you know that?
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because the Christian God is mutually exclusive to every other God claim.
Because why? Because the book says it?
No, because that's what it means to be mutually exclusive. That you have one claim, and that every other claim that there is different. If you do have a claim, if you do have a claim where they do claim to be the Christian God, then you just conceded the argument to the Christian. Okay, that God has a necessary property set that is necessary for intelligibility.
Pause it.
Okay, so I've explained.
Again, he has done nothing to show how the property set is a real thing in reality. He just claimed that there's this property set. And that's all he's done. Show the property set actually corresponds to reality as opposed to being just a belief you hold. Like, oh God, it's exhausting. And what's more pathetic is that these people actually think that there's some kind of intellectuals. Like, if you said anything of this kind in an academic setting, you would be laughed out of the classroom. Like, this is just completely delusional.
Yeah, I'll take it from an actual academic, whereas like, Jay Robbins, God doesn't exist because.
Explain to you now how the Christian God does have these properties, how we know that he has these properties in Scripture, and because he's always truth revealing, we can know that we can have trust or faith in the Scriptures.
All right, so that's the one that always gets me. He's always truth revealing, and that just like begs the question because. Yeah. You're going to have to apply like a justification, not just merely like restate that that God is always truth revealing. Like, there needs to be some type of justification. And it seems like that type of justification is still going to be subject to a deception, right? Because what's inconsistent about a deception being revealed with all the means for what seemingly looks like proper justification, right? That would just be constitutive of a successful deception, one that gives you an apparent justification, right? But it just turns out that it's a deception. There's nothing inconsistent. In fact, it's entirely consistent with a deception.
Well, he would say that it's inconsistent with his view of what God is. But again, he's offered nothing to show why his beliefs correspond to anything. So his view is irrelevant. What the book says is irrelevant. What the property set he claims is a property set is irrelevant until you show that it's actually a thing in the world and not just a thing that he's stating. It just complete delusion on the worst.
And that aside from that, you don't have intelligibility.
Yeah, but I asked you about this before.
I've just made this clear now multiple times.
Yeah, I've asked you this before. It's like, why do these property sets and why does this particular property set, is it necessary to have intelligibility? And when we hashed it out with specific reference, can I finish? With a specific reference to always being truth revealing, all that reduced down to is not that the quality of being always truth revealing is necessary for intelligibility, but God has that property, and therefore God's necessary to have intelligibility. So it actually didn't have anything to do necessarily with the quality of being always truth revealing. Or are you saying it does?
I've explained this. Look, Tom, I've explained this multiple times, and I explained it to you last time you asked me about this. I explained this multiple times, and I explained this the last time we talked. When you are talking about a God who's a liar, you destroy your ability to know anything. Okay?
Why?
Because I'm explaining it to you. The revelation that you're appealing to is from a God that can lie. Okay, so you have no confidence whatsoever in the revelation of the God that you're saying.
Oh, so it's just about confidence?
No, listen. If you're already conceding,
why'd you use that word?
Listen, that you're already conceding that in such a worldview you have no ability to know anything, because the knowledge that you're purporting, is a knowledge or is a revelation of that which is a liar.
Pause.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge from liars? No, you don't.
This is another complete error. Like, he's assuming that knowledge equals certainty. Just because somebody lies doesn't mean they're always going to lie. Just because knowledge, if you take a fallibilistic approach to knowledge, then there's no problem. because you don't have to be certain of, when in that context, knowledge is defined as justified true belief, regardless of whether or not you can be certain of that belief. Again, this is just.
Well, it's also strange because it's like, if I just ask the question, like, how does God know that He's always truth revealing? Seemingly they're going to beg the question and say, well, because God's always truth revealing or God's omniscient. But saying that you're all knowing isn't actually applying. Like, what's the justification that God has to know that He is, omniscient in that case? So I don't know that like merely stating the property doesn't have more than just the issue that's raised. It seems to also have further issues with the deity itself. Right, like how would the God know if or if not it was a brain in the vat? Appealing to its omniscience just begs the question, because we're precisely asking how the God knows.
Yeah, but the problem,
its revealing nature or its omniscience.
The problem with these conversations that I hear online is that they're already giving them too much room to navigate. Like the moment he says, well, these are the properties, the only question that matters, as far as I'm concerned, is how do you show that those properties aren't just imaginary and are actually things that exist in real life, as opposed to being things that you made up because you need this to be true. Like, I don't know.
That would be a simple question for him, and that's way too much. We have to beg the question. Remember,
I can't listen to.
You don't have knowledge from lies, because of course, what has been revealed is a lie. So when it comes to knowledge, right? Knowledge requires that there are truths of affairs, which is true. In a world where that which is ultimate is revealing falsehood to you, then you cannot say that you have knowledge.
Has your mom ever lied to you?
I'm sure.
Oh no.
Sure, but possibly. I don't know.
And have you gained knowledge from your mom? Ever?
Stuff. We love stuff. And there's some really
great
stuff out there.
But get this stuff out of here.
Yeah, but you don't. But that's not the issue.
Yeah,
the issue is what is foundational. The issue is what is foundational and ultimate to all of reality. Period. Okay. And so when it comes to knowledge, wholesale epistemology, the grounding for the very epistemology itself is going to be based upon the revelation of the Christian God. Okay. And if you're going to try to posit a God that is not the Christian God, a God that can lie, a God that is a liar.
Yeah. He says the word epistemology and doesn't say anything about it. Revelation isn't epistemology. Revelation is something you're claiming happens that you can't justify epistemically. So, I don't know. This is just, Kat said it right. He's just asserting things and asserting them as fact with this arrogance and, oh God, these people are so aggravating.
Then you don't have an epistemology to appeal to, because you're already conceding that the God that you're referring to is a liar.
So
is that the God you believe in, Tom? Is the God you believe in?
Have you
rejected? Have you rejected?
Because you
have you rejected? Let me finish. Tom, let me finish. Tom, let me finish. Is the position that you hold to now? Have you now abandoned your atheism and now believe in God, but this God is a liar? Is that what you believe now?
No, what I'm saying is that I don't see how this property
he goes like 1,000,000 miles per minute, and like I know I have it on 1.25, but geez.
He's a Darth clone, which is like the most pathetic thing you can possibly be. He asks a question, doesn't let anybody answer, talks over people, thinks like it's just mind-boggling to me that there's people like that actually exist. I would love to. I don't know. Actually, never mind. There's no point in. I want to have, and actually, I was talking to my brother about this. Is like, I want to have intellectual conversations with people that actually have something interesting to say. And I know that people like J. Robin and Darth like get a lot of clicks and create controversy, and people follow that kind of stuff. But to me, it's completely uninteresting. it's just kind of watching a train wreck of completely delusional people, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Attempt to cling to some kind of constructed sense of confidence. I don't know. It's like they're pounding their own chests, like trying to make themselves seem like they're. I don't know.
Someone said that it seems like J. Robin has to like get his fix like every day. Like, I gotta talk to an atheist, and I think that's true. I really think like you can see he's like just fully erect in the conversation, like just all about it. Yeah, we'll maybe come back to that train wreck. We're running up against some time, but yeah, if you want to support us, you can support us on Patreon. I'll put up the link right here. We are hoping to I mean, we'll see how it goes, but we'll see if we do the phone thing or if we'll do StreamYard thing. But we're hoping to do like a Theist come on at any time type of deal for any stream, so that during any clip thing we can kind of since we already don't come back to clips at a lot of times, or if they're too long, we'll just do what we do always, and then come back to the clip in favor of talking to the theist. But yeah, so just support us there if you want to support us directly, and see if you had anything. I'm about spent.
No, that's all. Like I said, we have a guest on Friday. I might do a philosophy of Batman thing potentially, if people are interested in it. And yeah, thank you as always for you guys that joined us tonight. And yeah, that's all.
Yep, and yeah, again, yeah, Friday should be around 8. Well, hopefully get a firm time there, but we'll try to set up the live stream as a premiere, or not a premiere, but ahead of time, so that there's notification for the right time. So just look out for that if you're interested in the conversation.
Hey, thank you so much.
Bones. Oh, and thank you, Zachariah. We appreciate that very much. We might be closer to the phone lines, or I don't know. I'm getting a pretty decent chunk of change coming at some point, so I might just spend the money on it. But let us know in the comments if you think that's a good idea. But till then, peace out.